Yo, this is Trav, and you're listening to Trav's Mad Ballin, a Rim Runners emergency segment. Basketball is going crazy right now. Game 4 is in the books, tied at 2, while the Suns and Bucks head back to Phoenix. But the bigger story is USA Olympic basketball. They are 1-2, and if not for a win over a winless Argentina team, they could have easily been 0-3. The MoFo Baller, Joe Largura is back, and he will be passing dimes so that we can make sense of this. It's gonna be crazy, so subscribe now, hit the thumbs up, and check the description for other things that are show related. Now let's put this fire out. Let's spark this place with this intro.
Music and sports, it's all the same. Making a name for yourself to get in the game. You're going hard in the paint, you're doing your thing. Keeping the crowd entertained while growing your fame. From the streets to the league, overseas. Wherever your talent takes you for the trophies. When you come into the system, just by all in. Go hard to the goal and put the ball in.
Yo, this is Trav with Trav's Mad Balling, an emergency session for rim runners. We didn't expect to do it this often, that quickly, but in light of what's been happening in the NBA and internationally, we had to come back and talk about it. So along with me is the MoFo Baller. He's back, Joe Largura. We got to break this down. First of all, let's talk about the NBA Finals. Just happened, Game 4 last night. Let's get into that. Giannis has obviously shown he is the man. He started to show that he's a complete player, so he may just be Batman. He needs a Robin now instead of being Robin in the other way around. But last night's game, what was your impression of that game?
Chris Middleton, when he needed to step up in that fourth quarter, he absolutely did so. We obviously saw Giannis chip in as well. He had a major block. He had a steal that translated to a fast break dunk. Those were major plays down the stretch, but Chris Middleton had it all on display. He had the jumper going. He had many critical baskets down the stretch, and that's what Giannis is going to need from time to time in the fourth quarter, someone else to provide that offense and push them over the hump.
Yeah, we talked about that the last time we did our last episode. We talked about the inconsistencies of Jrue Holiday and of Chris Middleton. Well, they came in Game 3. They both showed up. This time around, it was one guy who showed up. He dropped the 40 points. Jrue didn't have to do a lot, but they got the job done.
They sure did. They sure did. And they had some role players chip in as well. Pat Covington, he struggled at times during the game. He had a major tip in the fourth quarter, and then he hit a corner three that really, really pushed them over the edge and gave them a lead, which translated to a run to close the game.
Yeah, and a Robin Lopez, it was a sighting for him. Finally, he shows up. He does a little bit of something. Oh, actually, Brooke Lopez, my bad. Brooke Lopez shows up. Well, they're twins, so who knows what. But anyway, he shows up. He did his thing, and, he did it quietly. In fact, when you talk about that 40 points that Chris Middleton dropped, it became, after the game, a pretty quiet 40 points. I don't know how it could be, but it became a quiet 40 points, probably because everyone was talking about Giannis's block.
Absolutely, absolutely. He was chipping in throughout the entire game, most notably in the fourth when it counted, so there's a lot of tension on Devin Booker. He obviously came out of his slump. He shot the ball at a very high rate. He, elapsed 40 points as well. But Chris Middleton quietly contributed throughout the whole game and pushed them over the edge.
Yeah, what's the deal with Devin Booker, though, man? This guy scores a lot of points. He doesn't get the rebounds. He's not a point guard, so he doesn't necessarily need the assist, but it would be nice to have it. But the big story on that side of the ball, Chris Paul, the turnover, so uncharacteristic of what he normally brings to the table. In fact, the entire team, 17 turnovers as a team, and then you have 24 points scored off those turnovers with a team that's number 4 in the league. In fact, tied for number 4 in the NBA in fast breaks, and they got 15 points off of that, 24 points off of that.
That blew my mind, absolutely. The turnover battle, 17 for the Suns, 5 for Milwaukee. Chris Paul alone had 5 turnovers. He had as many turnovers as the whole Milwaukee team. That's the guy that's supposed to bring that stability, that leadership, that calming presence to this young Suns team. But he's actually committing 5 turnovers, and some of those in very costly times in the fourth quarter. So that was one that jumped off of the stat sheet at me.
Yeah, he took the blame for it as well. So today he was like, this one is on me. Going with the way things are going, I think whoever the home team is seems like they're going to win the game. The Phoenix Suns played the better game. It's just that the Bucks at home closed it out in the fourth quarter, as you said.
Absolutely. Phoenix shot the ball better, but another major thing is the Suns had far fewer shots. I believe Milwaukee had 19 more shots than the Suns, and that's because they dominated the offensive rebounds. They had 17 offensive rebounds to the Suns' 5 offensive rebounds. So those are going to create more shot attempts. And then, as we already touched on, the turnovers as well were major. So if you're getting 20 more shots, it doesn't matter that you're shooting at a slightly lower percentage. You're getting more field goal attempts, and that's going to be a major factor to decide who's going to win a game on any given night.
Yeah, and going back to the fast break points, 15 fast break points for the Bucks, none for Phoenix. That's not going to win a game, especially when a game comes down to it so tight. But at least there's a silver lining there, because a team like Phoenix has played the way they did, still lost. They know they could carry it on at home, where it seems like home cooking is working for both teams right now.
Yep, but if the Bucks want to take this series, they're going to have to go to Phoenix and win one. This seems like the game they got to do it. You don't want to go back to Phoenix for a game 7 if everybody continues to win their home games. So if the Bucks want to, really take command of this series, they fly to Phoenix and they bring this same energy and effort and close out a game in Phoenix and lead this thing 3-2 heading back to Milwaukee.
How about another player for the Bucks that did a little bit of something throughout the entire playoffs, but nothing yesterday? 0 points for PJ Tucker. What's the deal with this?
PJ is one of those guys, if he can put something on the offensive stat sheet, it's a bonus, but it's the hustle and effort that he's going to give you every day. This guy's going to get on the floor. He's going to do his best and humanly possible to defend a guy like Devin Booker and aggravate him, have a hand in his face. But, he had one shot attempt last night, one corner 3 that was critical in the fourth quarter that he missed. But I don't think he's a major focal point of their offense. They got guys that can contribute on that end of the floor. They're asking PJ to box out, dive on the floor, and do his best to aggravate Devin Booker on a given night, in my opinion.
The aggravation didn't go so well last night. But, of course, speaking of Devin Booker, how about these 8, 9, maybe 10 fouls last night, and he's still playing the game? Come on, man.
There was a blatant foul on Drew Holiday on the fast break where he intentionally wrapped him up.
The rest swallowed the whistle on that one.
It was just unbelievable. I mean, the guy should have been whistled for that one and out of the game. Luckily, it didn't affect the game in too major of a way as no points were scored in that possession, because Giannis followed it up with a layup right there. He got the offensive rebound, followed it up. But unacceptable. There shouldn't be star treatment like that in the league. We all want to see the best players play down the stretch in a game. But Devin Booker blatantly took that foul there, wrapped up Drew Holiday, which I don't know what was going through his head at that moment. But it's a whistle. It's a call. It's a no-brainer to me.
I know it almost kind of goes back to people who think that it's rigged. The NBA wants the star players to still play. But on the road, you want Devin Booker in Milwaukee to continue playing with 5 fouls and be the reason why they win or don't win and not win. And luckily for them, like you said, they're glad they didn't win this game, because it would have been, well, they're not glad, but glad for the NBA they didn't win this game, because that would certainly be the dark cloud hanging over the playoffs.
It would have been a much bigger storyline if Devin Booker hits a game-winning 3 in this game last night, because it certainly shouldn't have continued on. His play should have been over with that 6th foul on that play on Drew Holiday.
Yeah, and Giannis, again, you can't say enough about this guy. He doesn't have to score 40-plus points in order to be a presence and a dominant force in the game, opening it up for everyone else. I mean, that block that he had, it reminded me of, remember Tayshaun Prince back against Detroit? The hustle play? I mean, not as much of the hustle, but it was a full-court play that he had done. Jermaine O'Neal stuffed Rasheed Wallace, and Reggie Miller gets down here, thinks that he's going to kind of have this little pretty layup, and got boarded like I don't know what in that game right there.
Oh, yeah, I absolutely remember that one. And, of course, the LeBron famous chase down block of Iguodala.
I mean, yep.
So a lot of times those not only save a basket, but they just rally up a team so much. When you see somebody go out of their way to make a huge effort play like that, it can start a run. And it showed in that fourth quarter last night because the Bucks dominated that fourth quarter, which was otherwise a very close game throughout 3 quarters.
Oh, absolutely. A very close game. Just a little bit of the statistics that normally, well, they all matter, but there's certain statistics that matter certain times. Sometimes they don't matter as much. And I think the turnovers that translated into 24 points definitely had an impact on the outcome of the game. When the free throws were pretty equal, they both were pretty bad from 3-point range. So something had to give. And it seems like that was a pretty big difference. And even with those 24 points coming off of those turnovers, it's still a 6-point win for the Bucks. It gives them something to think about and encouragement for Phoenix moving back home on Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm excited to see this game Saturday. This series has been a very exciting one. I think fans got to be happy with what they're getting out of the NBA Finals right now. We got a competitive series, 2-2 going back to Phoenix.
Exactly. If you're a basketball fan, you certainly want to see this game. You certainly want to see all 7 games, but the best team is ultimately going to win, depending on all the fouls and whatnot that may happen, and maybe calls and lost calls. So finally, who are you taking on Saturday, Game 5? Phoenix is at home once again, rallying the troops, like you just said. The Bucks need to get something done on the road.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think Phoenix is going to respond to this game. I just think that Chris Paul is a professional of the game. He's a master of the game. He's one of the best floor generals that we've ever seen play this game. So I think he's going to respond to a very subpar performance where even his 10 points is inflated because he had, I think, 2 points at halftime. He had the turnovers, as we had mentioned.
Terrible.
We're going to see him back at home. He's going to get it together. Devin Booker is going to have another big performance. And I think the Suns take this one to have a 3-2 lead going back to Milwaukee for Game 6.
Yeah, I hate going chalk on this one, but I see everything indicating that Phoenix is going to win this game, and they may win it handily at home because they did enough to win this game. This is one of those cases where the better team did not win last night, but, the win came to the team who scored the most and wanted it the most in the fourth quarter. I'm going along with Phoenix as well in this game on Saturday. And that kind of moves us on to other basketball on the international slate. And you wonder why I'm dressed like this. I'm in Jacksonville, Florida. You're in Orlando. It's hot as hell, humid as hell. But I have a New York Knicks Scully on. I have a comforter on. And it was so damn hot, I even brought the mitts out. The reason why? It was a cold day in hell. Nigeria beats the United States in basketball. Are you serious?
Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy. I think we've only lost 2 exhibition games since professional players started participating in Olympic basketball. We've lost 2 consecutive this week. Luckily, they got this last game, but losing 2 in a row, that's got to just, send a shock through the sports world because we're starting to see this shift in power in the world of basketball.
That's the truth. And of the international game of basketball now, taken seriously, not just taking second fiddle to soccer as much as it was before. Soccer is still the #1 game on the planet, but basketball, I believe, is a close second. And these teams now that weren't great before are showing up. And there are nothing but excuses being made by American fans and American ballers. I think it's a little bit of pride getting stung.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a different type of game that I think that the U.S. isn't sometimes ready to translate over to. It's a much more physical game. I mean, in the current NBA, you see the commissioner trying to address rules where guys like Luka Doncic and Trae Young, James Harden are able to draw these ticky-tack fouls and get to the line consistently. I've seen dozens of times these guys getting that little bit of contact that normally an NBA ref will call, but it's getting let go in these games. It's a much more physical brand of basketball that we're seeing right now that these guys are used to, but pampered a little bit more in the NBA, and they're not getting that with this international game.
And that's exactly what's happening because guys are looking stupid in the face when they think they're getting fouled in the international rules. They're allowing it to go. You have guys like Kevin Durant, who they say is that he can score better than anyone in NBA history. You know how today is the newest guy is always the best guy until you forget about the other guy from the past that was better. He's the best scorer, but then he gets palmed and blocked by Precious Achiuwa from the Heat, blocks him, and he tells him, "Pal, you're not the guy." Really? You're not that guy? This guy smack talking, a Nigerian guy who was just 12 years old when his country lost by 83 points against his American team, and now he's getting his pound of flesh beating up on present American players.
Yeah, it's amazing. And this has been a slow transition that we've seen, though. Back in the 1980s, I pulled a stat. There was only 2% of international players in the NBA. Current season, we're up to about 23% of international players now playing in the NBA. And these aren't just role players. If you look at the top 4 in NBA MVP voting, we got Jokic, Embiid, Curry, and Giannis. 3 of the top 4 players in our league right now are coming from abroad. It's a major shift. If you go further down the list, you got Luka, who finished 6th in voting. So we've got major players in our league that are coming from abroad these days and shifting the style and the demeanor that we're used to seeing in the NBA.
Yeah, I'm telling you what, though, the NBA did get softer from the 1990s when we remember even the old Knicks teams with Oakley and Mason, that tough Pat Riley defensive team. And they changed the rules. The hand checking disappeared. Derek Harper from back in the days with the hand checking, Mo Cheeks, those guys. It's not that game anymore. But the NBA softened up, I believe, because of the influx of European players in particular, who we called soft once upon a time. Now, those guys come here, they assimilate. They're better players because they're fundamentally sound. They don't have to be as athletic. They're just fundamentally sound. They have a mid-range game. They have the long game. They know how to handle the ball. They know the geometry of a basketball court more so than the ultra-athletic guys in this country, and they're doing better. There's one thing to be flashy and miss the shot, and another thing to be slow and still make it 3 points or 2 points.
That's an excellent point. I think hands down, we have the more talented roster with the USA team.
No question.
They are one-on-one scorers that can, score with the best of anybody in the world any day of the week. But the problem is we just don't see that fundamental play. Some of these other teams, Australia, for example, they've had their core intact on that team for 10 to 12 years. They're main players there. So these guys have been not only playing together for years, but they pass the ball well, they defend hard, and they know this style of play. The U.S. comes into this, they're kind of a mismatched group of guys. Half of the guys dropped out that were earlier committed due to injuries and other reasons. So we throw this mismatch of guys together that are highly talented, and we expect them to go compete with teams that have been practicing together for years, have been training for this specifically for months, and they just look unprepared.
Yeah, it reminds me of the NCAA tournament when you get these major upsets because it's typically guys who are 22 years old who've played the entire time of a particular small school program going against phenomenal athletes that are 4 or 5 star players, but they don't have the cohesiveness. And then you get the upsets because these grown men are beating up these college players who had just gotten on campus.
Yeah. One thing that stuck out to me when I watched some of these these USA games is the lack of size. We got guys like Kevin Love and Bam Adebayo is our big men on the team. I thought, where are our centers? Why do we not have any centers? And another thing that stuck out to me at that point is that wasn't by choice to play small ball. We don't have bigs and that toughness with American players in the league right now. I looked at the list and we got Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, Rudy Gobert, Porzingis, Nikola Vucevic, Valanciunas, Clint Capella, DeAndre Ayton. All of these guys are from abroad. There aren't any American-bred centers who can dominate the game and bring that toughness to this squad. So we do have a lot of just scoring guards out there.
It's also a reflection of what the NBA is right now. It's not built on the big man anymore. No. It's just so athletic. Those guys just run the floor.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a different brand of basketball that we play here. It's more positionless. As a center, you got to be able to shoot the 3. You got to be able to defend multiple positions. But now we're seeing that we lack that toughness. Just like you said before, this is almost like that old school toughness, the Detroit Bad Boys, where we're seeing some elbows, some toughness in the paint, and guys like Jason Tatum, Durant, and stuff like that, they haven't played in that era. Nope. They can't quickly translate over to that style of game, and it's a big difference. It's shown.
And that's why these guys are getting all of those points now, because I don't believe they get the same amount of points playing back at 94, 95 when those defensive teams were legitimately defensive and those bad boy teams from the 80s were defensive and brutal. those guys don't score like that. MJ did it because he's a freak of nature. These guys, most of these guys doing it today, likely not going to do that. So, I mean, that's what we have now with international play. They kept their rules and their style while we evolved over here in the U.S. for the sake of selling tickets and scoring more points. It doesn't change every 4 years. You get out there, get beat up, and look at the ref, and no one cares about you anymore.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm excited to see where the USA Tokyo Olympics bring us. We still got several players that are in these finals right now that are going to join the team. We got Chris Middleton coming in, Devin Booker coming in, and who else? We have another player from that roster as well joining. But I'm interested. Oh, it's Drew Holiday. He brings us toughness as well.
On a good day.
It's time to be concerned, but maybe not time to panic. We open up on the July 25th against France. They beat us the last time we played them in 2019 in FIBA basketball. So I'm interested to see where this goes. We got a competitive schedule ahead of us, the USA, and they need to show some chemistry. They need to have a floor general, not just, hey, it's your turn to take a contested three, then I'll take one. They need to have someone step up, run this offense, and show that we can play as a cohesive unit.
I remember back in 2004, here in Jacksonville, the Puerto Rican team came here to play the U.S. team in an exhibition. I was at courtside ringside. I was at courtside for that game. Just left SEC Media Day in Birmingham, came straight to courtside. In that game, 3 guys were out. Amari Stoudemire was out. It was Amari Stoudemire, and I believe it was LeBron James and Allen Iverson. I believe those guys missed the game because they missed the meeting. And from what I heard, there was things going on the night before at some clubs that made them miss the meeting the day after. But either way, they didn't play, and that team went on to get the first bronze by NBA players, and it was not a good moment. I mean, you had Tim Duncan on that team.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the 2004 Athens Olympics, one of the exhibition games there. And Carlos Arroyo came out and played like Kobe Bryant in that game. I don't think anybody can forget that one. So that was a major letdown in 2004. We ended up with a bronze there. We've got 15 golds, 1 silver, and 2 bronze in history. But that was the most recent major letdown for the United States. And they need to get their act together and play with a sense of urgency coming from here on out. Absolutely.
You got to uphold that name of USA basketball. It holds something. Hey, let's not forget, back in the day, that dream team that everyone talks about from 1992 did lose to the college all-stars that year. So that was also in practice and exhibition games. And we saw what they were able to do when the lights were on. These guys stepped up, even not at 100%. They stepped up, won their games by 60, 70, gave out autographs and got their gold medal, customary, whatnot. So that was all good. The U.S. team right now, 1-2, they just beat an Argentina team, which is now 0-3. So that doesn't say much about this American team.
It doesn't. We play Australia again tomorrow. So we've lost to them this week already. So it's time to see it. Has USA made a shift, got over the hump, and learned to play together? Maybe some of these guys are fatigued from playing in the playoffs, whatever it may be. But we got to see this group come together for the remainder of these exhibition games so we can, have a level of comfort going into the Olympics, which start on the 25th against that game with France, as I mentioned. That team has 5 NBA players on it. Rudy Gobert, Evan Fournier, some of those guys, they can hurt you if you come into that game sleepwalking. So they need to get back together now.
Well, for right now, that's going to do it for us because we just had to do an emergency session here because things was just getting out of hand with the U.S. Olympic team going 1-2. And if they would have lost to Argentina, it would have been an 0-3. And there's no way to feel good. I don't feel good just by them beating Argentina. And of course, touching on game 4, looking forward to game 5. You took Phoenix. I'm taking Phoenix. We're going to have to break up eventually, but we might not even get to that point. We got to see if it happens. But yeah, glad to have you on once again in this version of another emergency session for our Yo Trav Matt Ballin, our Rim Runners special, which normally doesn't happen this soon, but it had to happen. There was an emergency, and we ran to take care of this 3, 4, 5 alarm, maybe 6, 7 foul, like Devin Booker fire. So we'll have you on again eventually, and that'll be it for us from Jacksonville, Florida, and Orlando, Florida. I'm Trav with Yo Trav Matt Ballin. That's the MoFo Baller down here in the Magic. said Magic Land, Magic City. Yeah, that's a brother from Magic City. So he's with
Oh
you.
yeah.
And we're glad to see you next time. Check
All
you
right,
later.
thank you for having me on, Travis.
All right, no problem, man. Always.